there. How are you? Thanks for stopping by. What do you think of our house? I bet one day you plan to buy a house as well. It's a big decision, not to be taken lightly. In fact, to buy a house, you have to borrow money. Probably more money than you'll borrow for anything else. Borrowing money is called a loan. And we are ready to learn about loans and some of the math behind loans. So come on, let's get to it. Let's begin this lesson with a bit of a warm-up question, a bit of a review question. Let's suppose that Mr. Elliott wins $1 million in the lottery. He quits teaching, puts the money into an annuity that pays 6% interest compounded monthly. He's going to make monthly withdrawals to live off of for the next 50 years. So that would be 50 times 12 monthly withdrawals, or 600 payments. So this is an example of an annuity that starts with a present value and you receive regular payments from that over time. So this is a PV formula that we want, one of the two formulas here. Now in this case, we're looking for the amount of each withdrawal, the R value. So we actually want to use the second formula or a TVM solver. You could use a TVM solver to find the answer. So we'll use that formula. We put $1 million in for our present value, our interest rate, which we have to divide by 12. And you punch all that in on your calculator. If you're having trouble getting that on your calculator, you can either refer to my last lesson. If you're still having trouble, it might be time to give me a quick email and say, hey, I need some help, and I will do that. If you want to pause the video and try it, you can. You should get $5,264.05. That's not bad. That's definitely money you could live off of. I wouldn't say that you're wealthy off $5,000 a month, but that's not too bad. It's certainly enough you could retire, that's for sure. In this lesson, we're going to talk about loans. So a loan is an agreement for a person or business to borrow money from the bank and pay it back with interest. Suppose you buy a vehicle. So in this case, Sammy borrows $25,000 to purchase a new vehicle. And the interest rate is 7% compounded monthly. And he's going to take 5 years of monthly payments to pay off the loan. How does it work when you purchase a vehicle? Well, assuming you borrow the $25,000, all of it, you would immediately begin making monthly payments. 5 years is a typical amount of time with interest. How do we figure out how much those payments would be? Well, actually, this is exactly the same as the annuity in the warm-up question. Why? Because if you think of it from the bank's point of view, it's the exact same thing. I could reword this problem as if the bank took $25,000, invested it, and collected monthly payments until the money was gone. So a loan is a present value annuity from the bank's point of view. And so we can actually use the exact same formula that we did in the above example where we solve for R. We can do that to figure out the monthly payments on this vehicle. So our present value will be the amount of the vehicle, or the amount of the loan. Our interest rate is 7% divided by 12. And our number of payments, well, 5 years times 12 months in a year is 60 payments. We punch that all into our calculator, and we'll find out that we get $495.03. So that's the monthly payment amount, so that the present value of the loan becomes 0 after 60 months. $495 per month for 5 years. One thing you could do is if you took $495.03 and you multiplied it by 60, you would find you get about $29,700. So you can see that he paid about $4,000, almost $5,000 in interest in order to buy the vehicle. Another example, suppose we have Erica. Now, Erica can also borrow money at 7% compounded monthly, and also a loan that is over 5 years amortized. That's like spread out. Okay, that's the length of the loan. It's an amortization period, or we sometimes say it's amortized over 5 years. But she can only afford $250 for monthly payments. How much can she afford to borrow? Well, in this case, you want to know what the value of the loan is, or what the present value is. So you could use this formula right here, where you use 250 for your R value, and then your N value would again be 60, 5 years times 12 months in a year, and your interest rate's the same. You could do that, or we could use the TVM solver. That's probably how most people would do it. So I'll pull up our TVM solver we've been using, and in this case, okay, we know that the payments are $250. The interest rate is 7%. The future value, I'm not sure if you can leave that blank or not, but you should put 0 there. 60 payments. So this is basically like saying, okay, what's the present value going to be if the payments are $250, the annual interest rate 7 over 60 months compounded monthly. Click solve. We get $12,625.50. Now it gave you a negative answer. If you want to make it a positive answer, put the payments as negative. It'll give you a positive answer that time. So that's how much Erica can afford. $12,625, and what was that again? 50 cents. If she borrowed that amount of money, then her payments would be exactly $250. That's the price of a fairly decent used vehicle. Quite a decent used vehicle, probably. How much interest did Erica pay in total? So suppose she did find a vehicle that was exactly that amount, and so she paid $250 a month. Well, the interest would be 250 times 60. That's the amount that she paid. In total, that's what the real cost of the vehicle was for her. And that comes to exactly $15,000. Sorry, $15,000. However, the vehicle itself was only $12,625.50. And so the difference between those amounts must be because of the interest. She paid about $2,374.50. It's very common to borrow money to purchase a vehicle. It's really hard to save $12,000. And odds are, in order to save $12,000, you need a full-time job. And to get a full-time job, you often need a vehicle. The only people who tend not to borrow money to purchase vehicles are people who are okay with buying vehicles that aren't very expensive and kind of looking after the vehicle themselves. It's hard to buy a new vehicle without borrowing money. Okay, let's move on to our next example. In the next example, we'll look at a special type of loan used to purchase a house, and that's called a mortgage. Now, I've said, suppose a mortgage is $280,000, so that's the amount that you borrowed, not necessarily the cost of the home. Perhaps you made a large down payment, which is a one-time payment, or perhaps you sold the house, and bought a new one, but you still owe $280,000. We're going to find the monthly payment amounts on this. So we could use the formula R equals PV times I over 1 minus 1 plus I to the power of negative n. Okay. If we do that, our present value is the $280,000. Our interest rate will be 0.03 divided by 12. And our number of payments is now monthly payments for 25 years. Well, is whatever 12 times 25 is, or 300 payments. Let's plug this into the TVM solver instead of using the equation, but you can do either. It doesn't matter in this case. So if I go back to our TVM solver, okay, so our present value was the $280,000 that we owe. Okay, the payments, we're going to find that amount. The periods is the 300 payments, compounded monthly. What was our interest rate? 3%. And then we go here, we solve for our payments, and we get $1,327.79. If you use the formula, you should get the exact same thing. So that's how much you would pay every month for 25 years in order to pay off a $280,000 mortgage. When purchasing a home, a person usually saves up money to make a down payment. Okay, so a down payment is like the money that you put up front for the home, not what you borrow, but what you actually have in cash to begin paying off the home. In Canada, I believe you must come up with about 5% of the price of the home to come up with a mortgage. So let's say in this example that you want to purchase a home in 5 years. You save $150 per month to go towards the down payment. The money collects interest at 2.5% compounded monthly. How much money will you have saved for a down payment? Be careful with this one. This is the future value formula, because now you are actually back to talking about savings. Okay? The present value is zero. Your savings start at zero when you put away $150 a month. So you're going to have $150. Okay, 5 years. Okay, compounded monthly, divide your interest rate by 12 for 5 years is 60 months. So if you put that into a calculator, you should get, or you could use a TVM solver, you should get the final answer. Just doing that right now. Get about $9,576.08. Not a huge down payment, but I just wanted to remind you that we do have that other formula that we can use as well. Now, if I wanted to use the TVM solver to check that answer, I can do that. Okay, our present value is now zero because we're talking about savings. So present value of zero, a payment that we make, you can leave that negative if you want, is $150, 60 months. Our interest rate, I believe, was 2.5%, and we calculate our future value, and there you see the same answer there using the TVM solver. So the goal of this, loans are the same as a present value annuity. So borrowing money and paying it back with interest is kind of the same as putting away a lump sum of money and collecting payments. They're the exact same formula, the exact same type of annuity. You just think of it as from the bank's point of view. We're going to talk a lot more about loans, especially auto loans and mortgages next week. And I'm going to have some assignments for you to work on. Let's just review some of the types of loans that you might see, though. Let's take a minute and talk about the types of loans that you might come across. There are several different kinds. Let's start with the credit card. So we've talked a little bit about credit cards already. And the idea with a credit card is that if you do not pay your credit card bill, it is transferred into a loan. And that loan has a very high interest rate. I did a quick Google search and told me the average interest rate in Canada on a credit card was 19%. And I've said anywhere from 15% to 30% could be the interest charge on a credit card. So very high interest rate. I know my own credit card is 28% interest if I don't pay my bill. The next type of loan is a short-term loan. That's any loan over a short period of time, say from 1 to 6 years. Now, the interest rates I'm going to give you are all kind of guidelines because it can really depend on a lot of things. But I've said anywhere from 5 to 8% is the interest rate you'd pay on a loan for a short-term loan. A special type of short-term loan is an auto loan, which is not a big surprise. That's used to purchase an automobile. Now, the interest rate would be about the same, 5 to 8%. I haven't included in your notes, but typically you would take anywhere from 3 to 6 years to pay for an automobile. So when you purchase a vehicle, you usually start making monthly payments right away. For a lot of people take 5 years to pay for a vehicle, but I've said anywhere from say 3 to 6 or 7 years. A line of credit is another type of loan. That's basically a bank account that allows you to have a negative balance. So it's one of those loans where you only have the loan if you need it. So some people use it in an emergency. Maybe they need a new roof or something, home repairs, auto repairs, and they go to their line of credit to borrow that money. Students sometimes have lines of credits so that they don't ever technically run out of money. I had a line of credit when I was in university so that when I really needed money, I could go to the bank and take the money out. Sometimes line of credits, you have to pay the interest right away. It depends on the type of line of credit you have. OSAP, that's an important one, the Ontario Student Assistance Plan. That's a special type of student loan offered by the government of Ontario. Now, the really big benefit of OSAP is you pay no interest on the loan as long as you are a student. You have to apply for it, and usually you answer questions like how much money your parents make, how much money you have yourself, those kind of things, and only students who need that money get it. You should apply for OSAP. If you get OSAP, take it because it's free money. You don't pay any interest on it as long as you're a student. Once you are a student, not a student, pardon me, you do start paying interest, and you actually have 6 months before you need to start paying the money back after you're done school. So not only do you not have to pay interest while you're a student, you actually don't have to pay it off at all, including the 6 months when you're finished school. Banks do offer student loans as well. They do charge interest though. So while you're in school, the loan is collecting interest. They just usually don't make you pay back the loan until you're done school. And finally, mortgage. So a mortgage is a loan used to purchase a home. So a very large loan, of course. Mortgages are typically 15 to 25 years long. A typical mortgage is always 25 years or less in Canada. Interest rates are much lower. This will be the lowest interest rate you'd ever pay on a loan. It can be as low as 2% right now. Anywhere from 2 to 3% is what a lot of people are paying. The amortization period, by the way, that's the length of a loan. You also must have a down payment to purchase a home. In Canada, I believe the minimum down payment is 5%. So 5% of the price of the home, you must pay that up front. Some people do borrow money to make a down payment. That is a possibility. It might not be the smartest thing to do, but as we're going to find out in later lessons, buying a home is a smart thing to do. So how about some of these interest rates I'm getting? How am I getting them? Well, the interest rate depends on the type of loan, obviously. A mortgage is going to have a lower interest rate than a credit card. It also depends on what's called your credit history. So you have a score out there that basically says how good you are at paying off money that you borrowed. Now, you might not have much of a credit history as a grade 11 student, but you'll start to develop a credit history as you get older. One way you can get a credit history is if you have a credit card and you make regular payments on time for your credit card. Things that affect your credit history, when you do something good like pay off loans or pay off credit card, that makes your credit score go up. But things that can make it go down could be, suppose you had a phone bill that you didn't pay or you paid it late to the point where the company, sort of reported that, then that can make your credit score go down. So I'll give you a little story because I have a friend who owns a used car dealership, and he told me this is sometimes what happens to young people who come in to purchase their vehicle. He says they, were students perhaps, and they went off and lived on their own. Maybe they had, a phone bill or a cable bill or something they never bothered to pay back. They had a credit card and they were often a few days. So even on credit cards, you have to make minimum payments. They were late even on the minimum payments. And so, they got their first real job. They want to borrow money to purchase a vehicle. And he looks up their credit history and applies for the loan because all loans are done through the bank. So he applies for the loan and the computer says the interest rate is 30% on their vehicle because they have a poor credit history. They barely have borrowed money, but when they haven't been good at paying it back, or they perhaps, left a house they lived in and didn't pay a cable bill or something like that. So it's really important that you're careful with that kind of stuff because that can really hurt you. So your income can also help you as well. If you have a good job and a regular paying job, then you're going to pay less interest because you're deemed less risky of not paying back the loan. So that's a possibility as well. Sometimes auto loans, the interest rate's really good, especially on a new vehicle, because the vehicle itself is collateral for the loan, meaning that if you don't pay back the loan, the bank can actually take your vehicle. And so sometimes you get a better interest rate for that because your loan isn't seen as risky because the bank can get their money back by taking your your car, or in the case of a mortgage, your home. So sometimes that's why those interest rates are lower. The other thing that can affect an interest rate is what's called prime interest rate. So the Bank of Canada changes the prime interest rate as we've talked about already, and that causes loans to be cheaper or more expensive. So sometimes just the year and the timing of getting the loan might affect the interest rate. And then finally, the financial institution. So you can shop around for loans. I did that when I had a mortgage, that's for sure. I went to different banks and made sure I got the best deal I could. Every time you borrow money in Canada, it is through one of the banks. Even though when you purchase a vehicle, it'll feel like it's the dealership giving you the loan, really when you sign the paperwork, it's actually one of the banks, maybe CIBC or TD or one of those big banks that's actually lending you the money. So that's just the beginning of loans and mortgages. We're going to talk a lot about that next week. And bye for now.